بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. It's a pleasure once again to be able to share a few moments with you brothers and sisters. I'd like to thank the Jamaat for giving me this opportunity to speak for half an hour. And first of all, I want to send and convey my felicitations and congratulations on the auspicious occasion of the birth anniversary in advance of the Holy Messenger. The title which has been assigned for me is the political life of the Holy Messenger and what lessons we're to take from it. So within half an hour, I'll do my best to mention one or 2 points, inshallah. It's mainly going through certain Quranic verses, analyzing them carefully. The Holy Messenger of Islam, all his life, and especially the 23 years during his mission, it was all a struggle. There was no rest. You never see in the ahadith that the Holy Messenger slept the whole afternoon. It was all a struggle. He was always active. Primarily doing two things during the 23 years. One is propagating Islam for the ignorant masses. That was something very important. And the second, and he would propagate starting in small circles and then gradually growing. And ultimately, after 13 years in Mecca, he set up an Islamic government established a government in Medina. During those 13 years, it was all about granting knowledge, disseminating knowledge to the ignorant people of the time. And he would start with a few number of people and then gradually grow. The second element was to stand against the tyrants of the time, the oppressors of the time. Those who had a lot of wealth but would abuse their wealth. He would always speak against them too, from the very beginning. However, in Mecca it was more, he would speak against them, he would revolt by word in Mecca. But in Medina, the revolt and uprisings against the tyrants was by the sword. But when I say by the sword, he wasn't after power. Today, when the military wars that go on in this world, it's all to gain more power. But the Holy Messenger's wars were all defensive, were all after setting an Islamic government, and also it had this in mind, to make people be free to reach their perfection. That's why he would use the sword, not to get more and more power, but to allow people in that environment not to be oppressed, to be free, and to reach that potential that Islam has in mind for them. It's Adam Sazi, to really bring about the inner reality of people, to lead people to their potential. This was the aim. It wasn't about a power struggle. They weren't power hungry. But the use of the sword in this revolt against the tyrants, against the oppressors, was after setting the Islamic governance. But even in Mecca, by word, he would never compromise to speak against oppression. He wouldn't use the sword. It was only by mouth. But never was he silent. So as he grew in numbers with those close disciples, as they grew more and more, he would always spread the message of Islam and the fact that oppression is wrong and we don't accept it in any form or shape. We can't compromise with this. And during all this time, sometimes where it was in the best interest of Islam, he would enter into certain pacts, agreements with the enemy. But that was still looking at the future growth of Islam. And that was only temporary. This was the model in those 23 years. In the Quran, it refers to this, where the sending down of the prophets, it speaks of وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابِ وَالْمِيزَانِ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدِ, that we sent the prophets with the book, the theory of Islam, the mizan, the scales of justice, the enforcement of Islam, so that people can establish justice for themselves. If people are going to be oppressed, they can't practice Islam. You can't practice Islam when you're oppressed. That's not, it will be a limited form of Islam. It will be an Islam which the enemy would like, not the Islam that the Holy Messenger wanted. That has to be done in an oppression-free space and atmosphere. And he sent down iron for military purposes when it was necessary. But in Medina, after the establishment of the Islamic governance, all the wars were defensive in nature. He wasn't after wars. They were all defensive. But during this time, he would always speak against all false ideologies and all forms of oppression. This was never compromised with. Even when he made pacts, even when he made allegiances, Islam wasn't compromised though. The fact that you were an oppressor, but I'm forced to now make a pact with you. Not that we're friends. That was never in the equation. Then, in this verse, the verses preceding it, this verse that we sent down the book, we sent down the scales of justice so that you can establish justice. In the verses preceding it, the Quran is referring to an important point though in this journey. Don't delay in your journey to establish justice. Don't delay things. It's going to cause problems. Alam ya'na lilladhina amanu, hasn't the time come for the believers? And takhsha'a qulubuhum li dhikrillah wa ma nazala min al-haq. Hasn't the time come that their hearts submit to the remembrance of Allah? For their hearts, hasn't the time come to submit to that which Allah has revealed, the Holy Quran? وَلَا يَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلُ فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمْ الْأَمَدُ فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. Don't let these people be like those who were given the scripture, the people of previous books, who were given the scripture before, but they delayed. They let a long time lapse before enforcing the scripture. Don't be like those. Because if that happens, فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, your hearts will be hardened. The hearts will be hardened. You won't submit to Allah. You won't have khushu'. You won't have subservience to Allah. If you delay in establishing justice by enforcing the book, if you delay it, the result is the hearts will be hardened. This is an equation. Just a marginal point, you have to forgive me. In logic, when you have a proposition, if the proposition is true, you can play around with that proposition in different ways. And then each of those ways that you play around with the proposition, assuming the proposition is true, the conclusions will also be true. We do this in logic a lot. For example, if you say all humans are talking, one of the ways you can analyze this proposition in logic, they say aks naqid, where you do two operations on this proposition. You reverse the subject and the predicate. That's the first operation. The second operation is you find the contradictory form of each. I'll just give one example. If I say all humans are talking, if I want to execute these two operations, I first reverse the subject and the predicate. Subject is the humans are talking entities, that is the predicate. It's like a scholar is sitting on the chair, a scholar is the subject, sitting on the chair is the predicate. So, all humans are talking entities. If you reverse the subject and predicate, you get all talking entities are humans. If you then get the contradiction of each, it becomes all non-talking entities are non-humans. And that's true. Now that was just an example. If you do this with the Quran, a lot of ma'arif will come. For example, when it says, don't be like الَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. Don't be like those who forget Allah, because if that happens, Allah will make them forget their souls, their selves. The subject here, those who forget Allah, the predicate, they'll forget their souls. Reverse it, those who forget their souls, they forget Allah. The contradictory, those who know their souls will know Allah. Man arafa nafsa faqad arafa. That's ahadith is all from the Quran. This is tafsir of the Quran through the Quran. All our ahadith is like that. But here, it says those who delay in establishing the truth, the hearts will be hardened. That's the proposition. Reverse it. Those whose hearts are hardened, what? They will delay in establishing the truth. The contradiction, those whose hearts have khushu or subservient, they won't delay. They will act. You can't delay things. You see? Now, this is supported in other verses. We'll come to that in a minute. So, be it in Mecca or in Medina, by word or sword, the Prophet would do it. All prophets would do it. Most prophets were martyred. Why were they killed? It wasn't to teach wudu or ghusl. It was because they wanted to establish the truth, to speak against oppression, to speak against the tyrants. Now this is a small jamaat. If you can't solve a family matter between husband and wife, or if oppression happens on a very small level in a jamaat and you can't solve it, God help you for the big forms of oppression. There's no hope. We have to build ourselves. We can't accept oppression. Here, in chapter 346, وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن نَبِيٍّ قَاتَلَ مَعَهُ رِبِّيُّونَ كَثِيرٌ. How many a prophet were accompanied in war with godly people, They fought by word, by sword. Well, it says Nabi, so it's still by word only, because they're not a Rasul yet. But how many with godly people they went fi sabilillah to fight against oppression? Most of them were martyred in this propagation. We've inherited Islam from these prophets, especially our holy prophet. We were indebted to him. فَمَا وَهَنُوا, they wouldn't falter in their propagating the truth. لَمَا أَصَابَهُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, with that which they would encounter in Allah's way, they wouldn't falter. وَمَا ضَعُفُوا, they wouldn't weaken. وَمَا اسْتَكَانُوا, they wouldn't degrade themselves. It's Allah, for Allah's sake. It doesn't matter if they are wealthy or tyrannical or a despot. We don't accept injustice. Don't degrade yourselves. Wallahu yuhibbus sabirin. Allah likes the patient ones. Because if you delay things and you don't establish justice wherever you are, now it depends in whichever area, but at least by word, it doesn't matter where you are. By word, you have no excuse. You have to propagate Islam by word and also fight against injustices by word. If you become silent, something will happen. I'll come to that later. But if you delay things, what's the problem exactly here? What is the problem when you delay things? When you say, inshallah next year we'll do it. The thing is, meanwhile, who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Who are you submitting to? Look at these two verses of the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in tuti'u alladhina kafaru. If you listen to the kuffar, for example, the kuffar of this country, at least it's those who are leading, those who are governing. It's not the law of Islam that they're practicing. I'm not saying you respect the law of the land. That's another issue. But I want to mention the spiritual side effects that come. That when you listen to them, and they're not doing everything Islamic, and you listen to them and say nothing, يَرُدُّوكُمْ عَلَىٰ أَعْقَابِكُمْ, they'll make you turn on your heels, turn your back against Islam. Exactly what happened with some companions in the Battle of Uhud, when they أَفَإِن مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ, if the Prophet was to die or to be killed, انقلبتم على أعقابكم, are you going to turn back on your heels if the Prophet was to die? What? Islam has to continue. Islam has to be enforced. Just because the Prophet has died, you're going to turn back on your heels? If they do, because they're listening to the kuffar. That's why you shouldn't delay things. In another verse of the Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, la tattakhidhu al-yahuda wan-nasara awliya. O believers, don't assign Jews or Christians as your wali. Don't submit to the guardianship of a Christian, of a Jew. Ba'dhum awliya or ba'd, some of them are guardians over the others. But then look at this equation of the Quran. وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُمْ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. Those who submit to the Jew or Christian, they're going to be one of them. You're a Muslim. You're living under Christian law, Jewish law, non-Islamic law. If you do that, you're going to be one of them. What does it mean to be one of them? It means you're a Muslim, but when you die, when you be resurrected, you're going to be resurrected as a Christian too. You're going to be resurrected as a Jew too. Look. Does that mean we all have to go? Not necessarily. No, don't. No, you still can stay, but you can't be silent. You can't be comfortable. if they're doing wrong, with the best of adab, with the best of etiquette, say, this is wrong, this is wrong. Or you advise them, these people you're bringing into power, they are tyrants, they are doing wrong, they're going to go against you. Advise them, don't be silent though. Because if you be silent, you're going to be one of them. And your Islam will be impaired. So here you can't be comfortable. Otherwise you're going to be one of them. You're going to be resurrected as one of them. That's why we can't delay things. In the Quran, there's one form of questioning of the angels. It's in the Quran explicitly. It's not man Rabbuk, man Nabiyyuk. That's in the Ahadith. But this questioning is in the Quran, where the angels see the inmates of hell, and they're in a very bad state. The angels say, Fima kuntum, what's wrong? Why are you in such a bad state? The inmates of hell. قَالُوا كُنَّا مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. We were amongst the suppressed on earth. Mustad'afin means when you can't reach your perfection. You can't reach the perfection which the Quran wanted you to reach. The Quran wants you to be Khalifatullah. You, because where you lived, you were suppressed. You weren't allowed, enabled to reach your perfection. You submitted to non-Islamic guardianship. The education was compromised, your taxes were compromised, you were doing things enhancing non-Muslims' interests over Muslims. Then the Quran says, Alam takun aradullahi wasi'ah. Wasn't the land big enough? Fatuhajiru fiha. You could have gone elsewhere. That won't be an excuse. But let's say you can't go elsewhere for whatever reason, at least don't be comfortable. Where there's injustice, with the best manner of counsel and advice, you advise people, local councillors, governors, up to the president or prime minister, in groups, organized groups. You have to say, this is wrong. This is wrong. Okay? We can't be friends. Friends in the sense that we just submit comfortably and say, yes, we are on the same path. Finally, in chapter 7, verses 164 and 165, I'll end with this. وَإِذْ قَالَتْ أُمَّةٌ مِّنْهُمْ لِمَ تَعِذُونَ قَوْمًا اللَّهُ مُهْلِكُهُمْ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا. That a community, a group of people amongst you, or amongst them, it was in Bani Israel, a group of people said to others that, why are you advising or counseling a group of people who Allah will destroy or will punish in the hereafter? Why are you counseling them? Look. So there are people who are doing wrong. There are people who are counseling those people. They're not silent. They're counseling, advising the wrongdoers. And then there's a group of people who are telling those who are counseling and advising the wrongdoers that, why are you advising them? Allah's either going to destroy them here, or Allah's going to give them a very difficult punishment in the hereafter. But why are you advising them? Be silent. There's no need. We have our own community. قالوا, the advising people said, مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. I'm doing it because I have to absolve myself before Allah. My conscience has to be clear that I tried. My guilt, I have to be guilt-free. I did my duty. That's the first reason, that you have to try. You have a duty, a responsibility, otherwise you'll be reproached for being silent. And second, who knows, maybe they will fear Allah. Maybe they will correct their ways. Whoever they are, from the grassroots level to the top, at least advising is okay. We're not at war with anyone. Then the next verse says, فَلَمَّا نَسُوا مَا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ, and when they forgot that which they were reminded of. Who forgot? That here, those who were saying, why are you always advising people? They said, look, we have to advise. مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ, so that we be absolved before Allah, and also maybe they will fear Allah. Once those wrongdoers though forgot this, forgetting here means that it made no effect on their hearts anymore. I'll tell you why the commentators have commentated as forgetting as not having an effect on their hearts. فَلَمَّا نَسُوا مَا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ, when they forgot that which they were reminded of, أَنْجَيْنَا الَّذِينَ يَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ السُّوءِ, we saved those who forbid the evil. We saved them. وَأَخَذْنَا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا بِعَذَابٍ بَئِيسٍ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْسُقُونَ. But we seized upon those who did oppression, who did dhulm, with a dreadful punishment for their fisq, for the corruption that they used to do. Now, those wrongdoers who said, don't advise, not that they weren't told, not that they forgot mentally, but it was of no importance to them anymore. Whether you tell them or not, it would have no effect upon their hearts. Rather than those who would forbid evil, who would advise. And the fate was, they will be given a dreadful punishment. That punishment may, God forbid, be here in different forms and shapes, or in the hereafter. But the message is, if you're silent, this punishment will be waiting you. Just like those who were saying, why are you advising? Why are you taking such a role? They were silent too. This will be the consequence. Our holy messenger was never silent for 23 years in his mission. He spread the message of Islam by word and by sword after establishing the governance in Medina. And when it came to fight against the oppressors and the tyrants, he always mentioned, you are a tyrant though, you are an oppressor, we can't be compatible with you. He would never compromise with that. He would never put his hands with the hands of the oppressor of the day. If you do that and you see him as two friends, that's the beginning of the fall. And if your leaders do it, leaders, not your leaders in general, the communities are all going to follow and fall. And this is the most important message one can take, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala tahirin. Yes.